Okay, let's try this again. Good evening, everyone. I will wait a little extra time because YouTube cut me off and I had to start again. So I'll give everybody extra time to get in. Okay, I get the green light now. I had the red light before. But I think we're all set and I think everybody's okay. Hi, Lynn. We still got about 4 or 5 excuse me, about 4 or 5 minutes to go. I know, I clear my throat every time before I start and then it starts again. So I got my water and my tea, so I'll drink them both. So, excuse me, I put the link in the chat for getting the pages to print out, and I also put it in the description. I wasn't sure if it would show right away, but I see that it's in the description for anyone that needs it. And it's just a few pages because this is just like part one. We don't want to get too carried away. So should be a fairly easy evening. And of course, now that I said that, will it be? We'll see. Lynn, are you sewing along with us tonight? And anyone else out there that wants to throw a hi chat in for everybody so people can chat with each other? This is how this all started. I thought that I would give you the story of how this came about because of this. And yeah, you're gonna have my elbow tonight. A little elbow in the way. I guess I could turn you a little more so you don't have to look at my elbow. Yeah, how's that? Hmm? Okay. Not tonight, Lynn. Gonna have an easy. Oh, sorry, I popped my head in there. Gonna take it easy night, sit and relax and watch. That's a good idea. Oh, hi, Rhonda. Oh, thanks, Rhonda. How you doing? Is Sewing Nancy with you tonight, or is she just on Saturday? I love that, Sewing Nancy. So we got one more minute to wait, just to be on the safe side. Rhonda's good at in the chat of putting up like thumbs up and a smiley face and things like that. She's got talents. Oh no, just on the weekend. So this is your just sit and relax and watch night if you feel like it. I have my Gemini Junior set up today, and I have it. Excuse me. I have it behind me. I try to have it a little ways away from the microphone. So I don't know if that'll work better or not. Okay. So I'm going to wait just a few more seconds, and then we'll start. Okay, I just throw up the sign there so I know where to cut that first part off. So good evening, everyone. We're working on our resource book for the Gemini, and I'm going to explain why I did it to see if it helps you. So I got this fat quarter pack that I ordered so long ago I forgot about it, and it just came I think just the other day, last week sometime. And it's called Be Grateful from Moda. And you can see it's got some, bigger prints in it, bees. I don't want to take it all apart yet. There's words. And I was thinking about how I really didn't want to cut it up into like a little beehive kind of thing. I didn't want to cut it up, excuse me, into little tiny pieces, and then I wouldn't know what it was. Because I really like the fabric. So see, can you? Let's see if I can. Can you see how this is all little bees going around here? And that's a fairly good size. There's some good size print. There's the words, and it's got let me see, what does it say? Treasure nature. It has all kinds of words and things on it. And these floral ones, can you see how there's a little butterfly and stuff? So when I was looking at this, I thought, well, I'd really like to make big blocks. Hi, Christine. I really like to make bigger blocks and bigger pieces in the blocks so that the fabric shows, because in this case for me, it's not about the quilt blocks, it's more about the fabric. So I don't know if you ever have an occasion where you got a group of fabrics that you really like, and you just hate to cut them up into little pieces because then you really can't see what they are. In some cases, when you're doing a quilt, it's just about the color, not necessarily about what's in the print. So hopefully that, let me sneak this one out. So hopefully you understand what I'm talking about, and maybe I don't mean that you don't understand, but if you have that kind of situation sometimes yourself. So I don't want to cut this all up into little pieces into a quilt because number one, the color isn't going to really show as well because it's got such spacing in it that in some places if I cut a little piece, There wouldn't be any of this, and it would just be like over here. So I really wanted to have bigger pieces so I can look at this quilt and go, oh, I love this fabric. So that's how that came. That's the beginning of how it all started. And I won't, all right, I won't, you know, I want to put it all back together, but I'm only I'm laughing at myself, at myself. So I got thinking about it, and I thought, well, I really want to make big, simple blocks. And so, and then I was thinking about, okay, well, I want to know what dies, what size dies can I use together without doing a bunch of math, if you know what I mean. So this one is all about a 4-inch finished square when we're done. So if you look at the first one, it's just the square, 4.5 unfinished, 4-inch finish, and I put it right on here. And then this is the half square, but it makes the same size as that one. Does that kind of make sense? And then we go to this one, which is a 1/4 square die, but it still is going to make that 4.5 inch block. And this one is 4 squares that end up in, and so on and so forth through this. So I thought, well, if I want to do this, maybe there's other people that want to know too, because it isn't always a matter of picking every die that says 4.5 inches. It doesn't work that way. And as I go along tonight, because we're only going to do a few of them, but as I go along tonight, you'll see how that makes sense. And then I thought, well, rather than having to refigure this out 20 times along the way, I'll just make a book of every combination I can make that will make a 4.5 inch square. But more importantly, because we're still down to fairly little. It's not too bad, but fairly little. And you can see the design. But I thought, well, what if I wanted to have some 8-inch blocks, twice as big as the 4, and I wanted some 4s as well. So I want to be able to mix them up. And so, let me move this for a minute. If we look at this picture, this might explain it better. So if you look right here, do you see this little pinwheel? This is and I'm going to say the finish size. This is a 4-inch block. Well, then I'm back to little pieces. But I can take 4 4-inch blocks and make a big pinwheel that's an 8-inch block. Now I've got bigger pieces. Again, this is a 4-inch flying geese. It's too little. Here's one that's 8-inch. But I might want some little ones to put here and there with the big ones. And I also might want to have right here, I might want to have just a big square of fabric. Or I might want to have 4 different squares put together to make this. So that was kind of what I was thinking. So here's the flying geese by itself in one block, which is, this is 4 inches. And this is taking 4 of them and putting them together so it looks like one block. The same here. If I take this block, which is 4 squares, and I just turn them a certain way, now I've got this real big block. If I wanted to, I could cut this block bigger, but this would be, I'd have to, let me see, would that be 4 inches? I can't remember. But if I wanted to make this one big fabric, I can probably do that with the, let me see, 4 inches. So yes, so this would be the 4-inch square center. And then this would be making one block so that this is a row, this is a row, this is a row, as opposed to how it is, which is just this one turned different ways. Does that make sense to everyone? You can't tell me, but hopefully somebody will throw something in the chat. So I just thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, I might as well share this with everyone, because generally everybody has that same issue where they have a fabric they really like, or a series of fabrics, or fat quarter bundle, or whatever the case may be, and they really, really, really like the fabric, and it's more about the fabric than the blocks in the quilt. So I could have lots of big, just squares of that fabric, and then intersperse some of these other ones, just so it doesn't look like a bunch of big squares. So that's how that whole thing came about. And I think there'll be a part 2. And when I do part 2, I'll load this picture up in there with the part 2 pages, so you'll have that to just kind of give you an idea of a reminder. You can put it in your resource book of how what to do with those squares. Okay, so we're going to start out easy. So the first one, and I know at the beginning it's going to seem like, well, this is just silly, I'm wasting my time, but to me it'll make more sense as we go along. So we got to start with the obvious ones, and even though, yeah, I know what a 4-inch square is, okay, well, sometimes we want to actually see the size of it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the 4-inch square. So, and I suggest when you do this, if you're not doing it tonight and you're doing it later, for every sample you do, put your dies back away where they belong before you go to the next one, because once you have them out, like the half squares and the quarter squares, sometimes it's hard to tell who's who. So just do one sample at a time. So we're going to do the square first. So this one's going to be easy because we're just going to look in the pack. And I'm going to take the plastic parts off so I don't have to keep doing that 20 times. And I'm just going to look for the 4.5. So the 4.5 is the second to the biggest one. Okay? And if you put it down on your grid, on your mat, you'll see that it's 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Because I'm going to show you how the 4.5 of a certain shape is going to be too big for what we want. Okay? And the other thing I want to tell you is, I found that if I run these through a couple times, just like this, just a couple times, like maybe 2 times, it helps flatten everything out. But I also find if you run it too many times, it'll start to curve again on you. So don't go for perfection, just go for as good as you can. But it does help, especially this guy, it helps him out. And I didn't do it before, obviously I didn't do it before I should have. I'm looking at this. Can you see that? Oh, it's easier to see. Wait a minute. Oh, hold on. Right here. Can you see it's kind of like a dark color? I keep thinking that it's like a piece of leaf or something. I keep trying to move it now. I don't know. I guess it's just like a little crack kind of thing going on. And my shim's looking pretty flat. I will say I did get a new set out for the new year. So remember let me move this a little bit. The ugly clear is on the bottom, then your metal, then the fabric. And the other day I did my dies face up, should be face down. I just wasn't paying any attention. And if I turn it just a little bit of an angle, see, you can see. Yeah, let me see if I can. Hold on. Let me get my stuff together here. Okay. All right. There we go. So if I'm not moving the die on the angle. I want the die straight because we want straighter grain and all that. I'm just going to move the fabric on a little bit of an angle. So the die and the fabric are a little bit of an angle because this pops a lot louder going through the Gemini if it's straight across. So let's see how that works. And I guess I better have a piece of tape. I was going to say I had it right here, only because I barely have enough fabric. And I'm just using some scraps. Caspian suggested that because I have one book done, that when we get all done the book, that I should give the second set away. He thought someone would like to get it, and he wanted me to make sure I autographed it. Okay, so I'm going to run those through. You go ahead and run yours through. Well, you can probably hear that pop pretty loud anyway, so. And boy, I did go close to the edge. And I just got a thread here. Oh. And when I say I went close to the edge, that was pretty close to the edge. So it did move a little bit. So it is a good idea to tape it down when you're skimping on the fabric. Okay, and I cut off this excess. I can use it again. Get rid of that excess. Yep, still got tape there. Okay, so you would go ahead and take this and go right in your book. Okay? So now I'm going to make sure that I put this one away. And I know it's tedious, but trust me, you'll feel better in the end. And you can just keep your drawers out if you want to. I'm a little short on room here, so okay. And this one's going to be easy, as it's telling you right here. This is the die that I use. So I want the half square triangle, the 4 1/2, which is the big one on the bottom side. So I'm not going to set this aside. I'm going to keep this with it, but I'm just going to, because I'm going to open them and close them. I just took the plastic shield off. Okay, and this time I need two. I need two different colors. So I'm going to take this piece. There's pretty close. And remember, straight of grain here, here, not here. Okay? So the long side is your bias. So you want this side or this side on the straight of grain. The other one would be on what we call the cross grain. And again, I'm going to tape it down. So look, so far no sewing. That's pretty good. And I'm just going to move to a different, let me do this. I'm going to flip this one over, flip this one over, and then put this on. And I'm going to, I've put it straight on my fabric. I've just turned my fabric on a little bit of an angle. So if you've got that done, go ahead and feed it in. And you notice I'm turning them in a different direction every time as I take them off. And what I should have done, I wasn't thinking clearly. But if I had put these down right sides together, I could have just picked them up. I can't even tell what. I could have just picked them up and stitched them. So I'm gonna put this die away. I know. It's like, all right, lady. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna save these because I'll have some littler triangles later. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch these together, and we're stitching along that longest side, that bias side, so just be careful when you stitch it. You want to make sure you do your 1/4 inch, practice it, even though it's just for a sample, practice it just the same. And you've got your little area here to stitch from. So you're stitching, I stitched just inside of this corner right there. And I'm using Baby Lock Solaris, and I'm on the Q tab, the quilting tab, and I'm using Q-02. And I know I've said this before, but I know there's always new people watching. If you have a smaller Baby Lock or Brother machine, if you just go through your stitches and you'll come to some that'll have a little letter P on them, and that's for piecing. And there should be one that's just a little right of center, and you want to use that one. And it will automatically take your stitch length down from 2.5 to 2.0. But it'll move that needle, so using your J-foot, and your J-foot has the little black bump there, the little black knob, and it says J on it. But it's easy to notice because it has that black knob. And I'm just automatically going to press to the dark side. And rather than bring my iron over, I'm just going to turn around, my iron's behind me, and I'm just going to press. Oh. So for some reason I didn't have any thread when I started. That's weird. So let me redo that beginning. Okay. Now, remember, if you have the fabric on top where you want the seam allowance to go to, all you do is have that fabric on top and just press it over, and that seam allowance will be on behind this fabric. Okay, and remember, press, don't iron. Okay, so these should be the same size, and they're going to go in the book just like that. Okay, so I'm going to stick those inside my page until I make another book. Okay, and then so there's page 1 all done. Let me do it this way. Be easier if I just take it out of the book. And just so you know, I stapled mine onto the page. Yes, I know you don't want to staple fabric, but I did. I just put one staple in, stapled it on the page. You can get fancy if you want. So this time we're doing this block, and this is the die we need: 1/4 square triangle, 4.5 inch. And I know you're saying, yeah, I know that, that's obvious, but it'll become less obvious as we go along with different types of blocks. So we want the 1/4 square, not the 1/2 square, and the 4.5. Okay, so the 4.5 is this one right here, 4.5. Everything seems so simple. And if I measure this across the bottom, it's 4.5. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty simple so far. And now I need oh, I need 4. They could be 4 different colors, it doesn't matter, but I just did 2 of one color, and actually those are 2 different colors. Okay, so let's see if I have enough of this one. No, I don't, because remember, I've got to be on that straight of grain. Again, these are straight of grain. Oh, no, you know what? This is different. And if you remember, if you look in your book, let me get my book. Right at the beginning of the book, page 3, you've got this little section right down here, and it's telling you what is the grain line. So a square is there. So, any side of the square. Here's our 1/2 square, where can you see our long end is right along this way, so that on the edge we have the straight side, the straight shorter side. But do you see this one? This is the 1/4 square. Because it's put together different, the longer end is on the straight of grain. If you look at this, let's look at this one first. Here's how you figure this. Whatever's on the outside, we want on straight of grain, not on the bias. Because this could get pulled and start to stretch itself before it gets put into the quilt. So by stitching this right away, the bias, that bias now is under control. So when we look at this one, you notice the long side this time is on the outside. So we don't want the bias out here. We want the bias in here because we're going to put this together right away. So the bias is now under control. So if we look at our block, whatever's on the outside edge is what you want to have straight of grain. Let me squeeze that down a little so you can, there we go, okay? So the long side is the straight of grain. So now I have enough fabric. I can't remember if I think I turned these already. We'll do this one this way. So now I need another fabric, and let me pick, well, I'll go with this one till it runs out. So I've got to see, is the straighter grain this way or is it this way? This stretches a little more. See how it gets that? And I showed you this before. It gets that little, let's see if I can show it to you. It gets a little hill. And this way stays nice and flat. So this is my straighter grain. And I'm going to put the bigger fabric on bottom. And because if I put this one underneath, I wouldn't be able to see where it is. So I'm going to put the bigger one is fine on the bottom. I don't have to be, I can see it. I can see it all the way around. Okay. So the long side this time is on that straighter grain. Okay, so you got yours already? I'm going to make sure I put this away. Ow, that was my elbow. Ouch, 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 ouch. And let me just trim off those little edges. Okay, so when I lay this one down out, I want to make sure that those long edges are to the outside. So if you're not sure how they're going to go together, those long edges are to the outside. Because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put them together this way. And you could, but you'd have a half square triangle of a different size. So if you just put them down first with all the longest edge to the outside, then you'll be good. Oh, trying to make sure I keep drinking so I don't cough all over you. So in this case, we're going to be sewing these shorter. So this is one set, this is the other set. So remember how we flip them over. I'm going to keep my finger right there because we want to put the pin in. You remember the old pin to know which side we're sewing. Because if you take this over to your sewing machine without pinning, I'm going to tell you your chances are you're going to go down that long side. And that's real annoying. So if I don't have my pin right handy, I just keep my finger right where it's supposed to be. I know it sounds like I'm two, but you know, you reach for a pin, you answer the phone, or you decide to do something, and then you forget where you are. So don't do anything till you have that pin in. Okay? So we can chain piece these. So I'm going to go ahead and start here, stitch down, then bring this one in and stitch down. Okay? So you get a little chain piece lesson at the same time. Did anyone see my my post on Facebook with my when I clean my machine? I was amazed how much was in there because I clean my machine pretty often. So hopefully you saw that and you were inspired to clean your machine. And if you're not sure how to clean your machine, I have a video, well, I guess a few months ago, on how to clean your machine, taking this all apart and so forth. Okay, so I want you to make sure that you keep your pin in till you get up here. You should get the second one right because it matches the shape of the first one. Okay, so here's my, there we go. Here's my two pieces. So now I don't need to snip my threads. I'm going to open this one up with the dark color on top. So I just flipped it over to that side. Yes, Rhonda, it was a ton. I was almost mortified. But I got brave, so I showed it to you. And that's probably because of the holiday. I don't know what I was doing, but apparently I did a lot of something. Okay, and I'm not taking this to the iron. I'm just going to finger press it, or you could use your roller. I was just going to brag that I had my little tool bag. Remember we made a couple of these bags just a while back. So I keep my my little ruler, my little rotary cutter, my roller, a few little things. I was just going to brag that I knew right where it was, and my finger caught on that and almost dropped the whole thing on the floor. Okay, so seam allowance on this one going to the yellow, on this one going to the yellow. That means they're going in opposite directions. So see, they're still tied together, which means that that seam should line up pretty good. And we're just going to flip one on top of the other. And I know this is just your sample book, but practice makes perfect. I want to make sure that those two seams are lying side by side, nice and flat, all the way down. I'm going to put my pin in just after. That way I can sew to and come onto my seam before I have to take a pin out. And you really don't need to pin the beginning and the end. So my eye for now is going to be right on making sure this is right. I'm going to sew a couple stitches and then get myself settled for the whole thing. You'll see what I mean. So I get a couple stitches in. I'm on pivot. So my needle goes down, my foot comes up. Now if I need to adjust anything or get this straight or double check here, I call this my third hand is helping me out. I just want to double check to make sure I have that seam following right down along the seam underneath it. So they're side by side. And then I'm going to stitch until I get close to that pin. And I'm making sure, because you can see, the seam can flip back. So I'm just holding it out here. My fingers aren't on the needle. I'm out here. I'm just holding it down, making sure that my presser foot doesn't push it up. You can see probably it started to push it up. So I just take my foot off the foot pedal, and then my foot goes up and comes back down, and it's on that seam. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do the little whirly seam. So I'm going to open it up and look, seams nicely matching up. We're going to turn it over and let me get my little scissors and see if I can get up close to you enough. So here's my stitching going across. And you can see, you probably can't see the stitches, but you can see the little line. I'm going to cut these stitches that are past this seam line. And there's a set on this side because that's the seam for this part. You got to turn it over and you've got to cut and usually it's 3 stitches. On the other side, because it's 2 different seams. Here's one seam, here's the other seam. And you know, if you're just a rotary cutting person, you could do the same kind of resource book and just write down, you know, what size strip you cut and so forth. So now I'm going to open this up and I can see the seam on top is going to the right. The seam on the bottom is going to the left. That means my seams have to go clockwise. So I'm going to push this seam down clockwise. I'm going to push this seam up, and I'm just going to come into the center, and I missed a stitch. Oh, there we go. And it's going to make a little baby 4-patch. So let me just give it a quick little press, and then I'll show you the little 4-patch. Okay, oh, there you go. See a little baby 4-patch? Because that patch is this fabric, that patch is this fabric, that patch is this one, and that patch is that one. But the nice thing is there's no bump there. It is just as flat at this intersection as it is along the whole way. Okay? So now we have our 1/4 square triangle square. And again, I know it's simple and obvious. This one is, now we want to have squares instead of the, oh, let me fix this because I'm going to keep referring to it. Okay, so we have our big square. Now we're going to have some little squares to make the same size, the 4.5. So we're going to use the square, the 2.5. It's marked 2.5 on the box, the 2.5, because 2.5 and 2.5 added together 5. But I do 2.5, 2.5, and take a 1/2 inch away for the seam allowance, a 1/4 inch on each one. So 2.5, 2.5, take away 1/2 is 4.5. So whichever way your math works for you. So, oh, it's falling down. So we want to have the square, and we're going to pull out the 2.5, which is the 3rd one from the center. 1, 2, 3. If nothing else, it looks nice when you're done. But the next one is where we're going to run into the change in the size. But you know, you got to have your basics. If you're going to build a quilt, you need to have those basics. So my 2.5, and if I measure it, it's 2.5. Okay, and then that means 2 inches finished. So I'm just gonna, I think I'll just pick 4 colors. So 1, scissors are in the way. What have I got? Okay, let's see. Let me cut some of my wings off here. What did I do with my scissors? Oh, here they are. And I'm just going to move down on, I'm just moving down on my plate to a different, instead of keep doing it at the top every time. So 2. This is a big one, so I'm going to put this one on the bottom. Yeah, it fits. I was afraid it was too big. And again, just use up some scraps. That always feels good too. And then my littlest one. Okay, so I've got 4. And not, you know, you could line it all up, but so that they're all over at one edge, but I'm just going to stick them right in the middle. And you want to make sure your fabric's straight, because you have a straight line on every side. Whichever way you put it, somebody's on straight of grain. There's no angles to this one. And let me get a piece of tape because I want to show you. Now, if I was using this mat set, and I was using if I was using this sandwich, the clear plates and so forth, and I was using the, well, I've cracked my plate, and I was using the big Gemini, I'd be feeding this way, and I can't do that. But because I'm using the Gemini Junior, my plate cracked in that spot. I can feel it. Well, let's make sure it goes through okay. But because I'm using the Junior, it's feeding in this way. This can be hanging out the back. It's okay. You don't want it hanging out the front, but you can have it hanging out the back. Okay, I've got to change that plate on the bottom because, can you see it's pulling apart there. So give me a second, find my other plates. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so this is a new plate. I'm going to put the new guy on top, and I'm going to take this one to the bottom. And I just want to make sure everybody's on board. I've never had a plate crack, so that was kind of odd. I didn't want to have something crack inside of the machine. And Crafters Companion's really good about their, customer service. So I'll just send them an email. Okay, and I'm going to make sure I put this die away. I'm not sure why I put the box away, but that's all right. Oh, thanks, Ryan. It did come. You know, apparently I do better sewing when I'm live than I do when I'm by myself. I don't know. Because I'm really honestly not that good. I'm just like you guys. Okay, so we're just going to lay these out. Oh, Rhonda got the thumbs up going. I didn't see that, Rhonda. So we got our 4 pieces, and again, I'm gonna do we're turning the book. Okay, picking up the first one. Keeping them hooked together. So I'm gonna flip this one, and I guess I'll go the other way because that's a light one. So I'm gonna flip one, and the only reason I do that is so that the seam allowance, one's going one way and one's going the other. Doesn't matter which way. So this time, I think last time we were left and right. Now this time we'll go right and left, and see if our pinwheel then goes counterclockwise. Oh. And the first thing I always do, line up that seam, because we should get our little whirly thing going on this one as well. Okay, and I'm just making sure I'm even on all the sides. Got my third hand going, so now I can just make sure everything's good. And I always double check and feel along here, make sure I don't feel any bump. And get up to that seam, up and into or past that seam. I don't want to get up to it like before it. I want to have stitched some of the seam before I take that pin out. And that's why I pin a little ways after the seam. I know some people pin like right in the seam. I find if I pin in the seam, it doesn't come out as well. Okay, let's see. Oh, the pressure was on again. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got, this is a seam we just did, so that's just sticking up. So now we're counterclockwise, because this top one is going to the left, the bottom one's going to the right. So we're twirling around this way. So I just got to clip those stitches. Let me see if it's easier with my. And for those of you that haven't done it yet, go ahead and click on that link afterwards. Don't do it now. That's down in the description to download it's free. Download the pages like I have. And I put the front cover in it too, just in case you want to get fancy. Okay. So always have that seam going across this way. So this guy's to the left. We're counterclockwise. This one's coming down, so this one's going up. And then we got our little 4-color 4-patch. Let me just give it a little press. And I just have my little iron. So if you have your big iron, because it's heavier, it's a little easier. So there's our little 4-patch, and there's our little tiny, oh, which way? This way. A little tiny 4-patch. Okay. So we got the kind of obvious ones out of the way. And again, you can make a bunch of these and put them all together and make whatever size block you want. But so far, whatever's on either of these pages can be mixed with each other. They're all the same size. So let me set that one there. This is our last set for today. So you see we have a big flying geese. It's probably easier to see here. We have a big flying geese and we have a little flying geese. Okay? So if we put 2 of these together, it will make our 4.5 inch or 4-inch finished square. If we just have one, this would be 2.5. You could put a rectangle if you wanted to. So if you just wanted one, here and there, just put a rectangle to it, which it would be, the rectangle would be 2.5 by 4.5. And if you have the, do I have mine here? No, I don't. If you have the strip cutter dies for the Gemini, you could do the rectangle. Or if you have the second set of the Build-A-Block, I think it's called Build-A-Block Plus. I believe the rectangle's in there, and I'll get to the Build-A-Block Plus after we get through with our Build-A-Block. Oh, Rhonda gave me a thumbs up. 2 for 2. Yeah, there I go. There I go. I don't have to do any more now tonight. No more matching. So here's where this is going to change. And the instructions say we want the quarter square triangle that's 4.5, but it's a quarter square, not the half square, because you're going to think this is the half square, but the half square would be too big. So the easiest way to show you is to show you. So I'm going to get so this is the half square, and I'm going to get out the one that's 4.5. Okay. Now I think this will all start to make more sense to you. Let me get some of my tools out of the way here. So here's the 4.5 half square triangle. Look. If I measure this along the bottom, because a flying geese is this way with 2 smaller pieces here. See, here's the big triangle with the 2 smaller ones on it. But if I take the half square triangle, the 4.5, along this bottom, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6.5. Now, if I wanted to have a 6.5 block, and I think we have a 6.5 on our squares, then I would be using this. And that's why when you start getting into these other shapes, like these are, that using the 4.5 of everything isn't going to work. Well, thinking of the 4.5 half square triangle. So, and it's not something that you're necessarily going to remember. So make sure you always read, I put quarter square triangle. I always put what size, what type it is first. Okay, so I need the quarter square triangle 4.5. So 4.5 quarter square. Now if I look at this long side, because this is how my geese goes this way. When I lay that down on my mat, that's 4.5. When I add these two pieces on here, okay, which are these two pieces, it's not making this any longer. And it's not making it really any taller. It's just squaring it off or making it into a rectangle. It doesn't really change in size. So along this bottom, it's still going to be 4.5. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, we have to look at this and go, okay, and we want not another, we aren't putting another quarter square here. We're going to the half square for these side ones. And we want the 2.5. Now the sizes make sense, 4.5, 2.5, but you wouldn't naturally know that you're using the quarter square for the big piece and the half squares for the small piece, because generally it's the other way around. You know, you have the big piece with the little quarter squares on the edges or whatever the case may be. So just be careful when you read these. And I put right on here, 2 half squares stitched on the left and right, make 1 flying geese, and put 2 flying geese together gives you your 4-inch square. So we're back to matching the other ones, the 4-inch square. Is that kind of starting to make a little more sense? So the big one, the center of the geese, I'm going to call it the geese, and I'll call the other part the wings. I'm not quite sure what it is your quarter square, and then the 2 smaller ones is the half square. And now to me, in my little pea brain, that seems opposite of what I think I should be getting out. So I want the 2.5, so this little guy inside, the middle one, okay? And I know they're going to work together. So if I put them like this, well, I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if that works. But if I overlap this edge with this edge, see if I can do that. They fit perfectly together. So if you're ever not sure, you know, you kind of look at them and go, okay, I'm not sure. Because you're going to have a 1/4-inch seam, they're going to overlap each other. So I need 1 of these and 2 of these. I was surprised this one's looking really pretty good. I thought I had the wrong one there for a minute. Okay, 1 big one. So I'm just going to use this up, and this should be my. Oh, that's not my straight. That's not my straight of grain. See, see that? That's the bias. And remember, we have to look at. Excuse me. We have to look at what part of it is on the outside. And this is true whether you're cutting, rotary cutting, or whatever you're doing. You have to pay attention to, okay, this long piece is on the outside, so this needs to be the straight of grain, okay? So even if you are rotary cutting, especially if you've got odds and ends, scraps you're using up, you still have to pay attention to where the straight of grain is, because you want the straight of grain to the outside, okay? So the big length, the 1/4 square triangle generally always is the outside long. The long edge is the straight of grain, because it's usually always on the outside, okay? And then the little ones, the 2.5-inch half squares, the outside edge. So the 2 straight short ones are the straight of grain. I know. It's a lot of thinking. So let's see what I've got. Let's see what I can accommodate this. Okay, so that's my straight of grain, so I can do that. And I'm going to cut this off because I want to put my other pieces on at the same time. I was just checking the other computer, make sure I wasn't frozen. Okay, so that's going to go there. And then my straight of grain is over here. Let's see if I've got two that will fit. I'll check that out. Here we go. Oh, they're all getting away from me, so let me tape each one of them down. And you can run one through at a time. So when you do your samples, have one flying geese separate, and then do another set with the two of them together. So each time you'll have the 4-inch finished square on every page to visually see they all go together. But that doesn't mean you can't use one with a plain rectangle of fabric. You can do whatever you want. And I'm going to end up cutting into that blue piece, but that's okay. It's just some scraps I had. Oh, let me tape it here. I want to make sure I tape to the tin a little bit, because if I just tape to the fabric can all move around. I'm trying to keep it behaving itself. Okay, so if you got yours ready to run through, you probably ran through before me. Just run it through. And you notice every time I try to turn it ready for the next time, because you get, I was thinking there were two here, you get busy and you forget. Or you get excited to get something cut and you forget. Which, I mean, it won't hurt a time or two anyways. So I want to remember that this is a quarter square, and I know, because when I look in my half square box, this is too big to fit anywhere. And that's why I say you want to put them up after you do your cutting. Put these right away. Because you'll know exactly the only spot that's empty. I was going to put these away instead of the die. That's pretty funny. And even if, see, I didn't snap them all in. They're just kind of hanging out there. But they're in the spot where they're supposed to be. Oh. And then I put my lids on backwards. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so before we sew, we're going to lay this out so we make sure we know how it's supposed to be. Okay, and it looks like, oh, that's not going to work together. But we're only going to do one side at a time. And I will say try to always do the same side first. So I don't know why, I'm gonna do my left side first. I'm just gonna move this over. I'm gonna flip this, and it lines up perfectly on this end. They're the exact same shape. And on the other end, because we're using it in a flying geese, can you see? See the little tip of the blue sticking out at the top there? Right here. That's fine, because you're going to start sewing from this end and come straight down, and you're following this this shape, and you'll be fine. Okay, and I want to make sure that I press that out, because remember, this is bias. So now, because I've stitched that, these two biases are secure now. They're not going to stretch because they're hanging out together. Okay, then I'm just going to flip this one, and again, I'm matching this end first. And I just want to press this a little flatter. In this end. Now, I have just a tad of fabric more here, which probably means I did a scant 1/4 inch, but I'm fine with that. But I'm starting from this end because I can't start from that end. My fabric's on the wrong side. So I'm starting up it where the two pieces meet. But I still want to make sure that, remember, we always want to line up in every direction we can. So my little corner is lined up, along here is lined up, and where I'm going to sew is lined up. And then I'm going to flip this one up. And they came out fine. What we want to make sure that we have, so if I need to trim along this top at all, I want to make sure that when I trim, I have a 1/4 inch, and it looks bigger in person than I'm seeing on the screen. From the tip of the blue to the edge of the yellow fabric should be a 1/4 inch. Should be. So if I'm going to trim it to make it a little straighter, I'm going to put my 1/4 inch, my 1/4 inch mark is right along the tip of the blue, and I just have just that little piece. Okay, so now it's nice and straight. Now, when you sew this to something, let's see if I can show you. Almost stepped on my notebook. Okay, hold on. I didn't close my 3-ring binder and my sock got caught. Do those things happen to you guys? Or is it just me? Okay, see if you can see here. I don't know if it'll focus in or not. Where the seam line comes up and the seam line comes up and crosses, that's when you're sewing along this way, that's right where you want to be. So it really is at the tip or just barely above the tip of the blue. So when you do yours, you can see on the back, those two seams cross. And right here where they cross is where you're going to sew across this way. You like that? I feel like I'm doing that, you know, in the shadows, you do the butterflies. Okay? So there's the flying geese, or goose. Is it one? Is it goose one? That will go with the rest of your blocks. So when you do your sample, again, make one just one, because you can have it just one, and then make the pair. Because this will give you that where everybody's the same, all the 4-inch or 4.5-inch unfinished, so that you can visually see everybody in your book is going to play together. Okay? So I'm not gonna sew the other two now, because it's the same exact thing as this, except you're gonna have two of them. Okay? And mine, my little edge, my little tip of my triangle is almost cut off, so you know, don't worry about it. And then there, look, there's my staple. I just stapled it in. So now we're gonna do the little guy. Now, I'm not gonna use this little guy, I don't think, in my block unless I have some little pieces left over, because remember, my whole point was to have big pieces so that I could see the prints of the fabrics. But since we're doing this, and this is a flying geese, I wanted you to go ahead and do a little flying geese, because it works in the same 4.5, except it just takes more of them, and they go around this way. And on the quilt, they do the quilt. Hold on. So you see how this one is made this with this little guy. It turns out to be 4.5. But if I did the same thing with the big one, which would be here, each one of these is a 4-inch block. Now this is an 8-inch, looks like an 8-inch block, but it's really 4 4-inch blocks together. Oh, sorry, got it upside down. Not that it matters. So here's the little one. Here's the big one. And the big one is just made from 4 of these. So what I would do in the book is I'm going to add some pages on that show an 8-inch block, because it'll still fit in here, because this is, what is this, 8.5, right? So it'll be 8.5. So it'll just fit in my book. But I want my book to be anything that goes together for the quilt I want to make and for future reference. So I know if I want an 8-inch block, it's still coming from these bigger flying geese. It'll look like this, except it'll be 8 inches. So hopefully that makes sense. So we just have one more to do. Let me get some stuff out of the way here again. So this time, and I know some of you already downloaded your page, so this time this is the flying geese, and it's actually sometimes called the Dutchman's puzzle. So this one again, your quarter square triangle is going to be the big piece, and your half square triangles are the little piece. So in this case, we want the quarter square triangle, the 2.5. Okay, so the 2.5 right here. Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, he didn't want to come out and play. I want to double check quarter square triangle, quarter square triangle. And when I put it down, I always put it down how I'm going to use it. So this is my big part, of my flying geese. And then from the half square, I need to have the 1.5 one. And that's the smallest one there is. Okay, so I got all the other ones out. Hold on 1 second. Oh, there we go. Okay, and again, when I set them down, I try to keep my life simple. I just set them down so I know how they're going to go. That way I can look at it and go, okay, I know this is my big piece and what fabric I want for that, and this is my little piece, what fabric I want for that. And again, laying this way will tell you, this is the outside, so I know this has to be straight of grain. This is outside, so one of these is straight of grain. Makes sense? So it's generally this one is straight of grain. Does that make sense? So if you kind of lay things down how they're supposed to be sewn together, then you'll know which way your straight of grain is supposed to be. So we need one big one and two little ones. So let's see what oh, hold on. Of course, you know I dropped my fabric on the floor. Okay, so let me look. Okay, so my straight of grain is here, so I know this one is going to go, this way. And I can just cut off all this other. Nonsense. And then here's my little one. So my straight of grain is on the short side. I know now I'm getting all matchy-matchy with the other one. So my straight of grain is over here. So this has got to go this way. And I need another piece. Let's see if I've got enough here. So I've got this little piece. Once I lay it down, you can't see one from the other. I'm putting the little piece on top. And we just made it. Okay. Talk about squeezing the most out of your fabric. Okay, so that guy's there. And here's my two pieces. Boy, that doesn't leave much left over. There you go. Okay. Now, when I'm done this class, I'm going to take my two clear plates and this one and run it through. And I think every time I've done it, it's just twice. And that's as much as you want to do. I already experimented on your behalf. And I was so irritated with myself because I thought, oh, I'll just go through one more time. And it made it like crooked back to the beginning again. Okay, and I'm just going to put them up because I'm going to run them through. So I run them through once and then flip it over and run it through again. I'm pretty sure it was after it was twice. I know I was really irritated with myself. I know that. Okay, so there's my one guy. And I'm going to put him away. Now he's the big piece, so he's the quarter square. And I don't know about you, but to me that kind of throws my little brain off. The quarter square I always think of as being smaller because it's, you know, it's half of a half. It's half of a half square. Oh, thanks, Lynn. So Lynn said in the chat, you make the steps so clear and give reasoning behind the steps. Oh, good. I'm glad that I was hoping that it helped you make more sense of the whole thing. Because, you know, sometimes I find we just put things away or don't use them because we don't have an exact pattern or we don't know exactly what to do. So thank you, Lynn, for putting that on there, because that just lets me know that it was, you know, it was helpful for you. It helped me, I know that, because I was starting to get a little like, you know, you think at first, oh yeah, this is easy, I just do this, this, and this, and yeah, it doesn't. You want something, especially if you're working on a quilt, you want some kind of reference, because, you know, like everything, we work on something diligently, and then something comes up in life, and I'm going to make sure I put this one away. Something comes up in life and we set it aside, and then we have no clue what we were doing. So having your book just helps you out, that you don't have to remember. You can just look in the book and say, oh yeah, I'll put this one in. You know, whether you're making a wall hanging or oh, see, I was going to put everything away. Okay, I can wait. Whether you're doing a wall hanging, table runner, mug rug, placemat, you have this reference for this particular 4-inch, 8-inch, and you know they're going to all work together. Okay, so again, I'm going to line them up like I always do, so everybody's together. And I don't know why, and I'll tell you, I do the left side first. You pick whichever side makes you happy. And I know I've said this 1,000 times. Make sure you line it up. So once you line up that corner, because the corner of both of them are exactly the same. Well, I know it's getting tinier now. The blue is the same exact shape as the yellow. So you get your corner lined up, but then make sure you've lined up each of the sides. My machine went to sleep. My iron goes to sleep. My machine goes to sleep. And before you put these pieces together, square them up. So this will be 1.5, and I've written it in there for you, 1.5 by 2.5, because you don't want a bunch of these that are all wobbly, and you'll put them together in pairs, and then you put the pairs together. And I think we've done this block. So if you check back in the Gemini Christmas table runner, maybe the third or fourth lesson, I think we did this one. I squared it all up, and you could see that. Okay, so we're always going to press the wing, the goose's wing, out. So it's on top. And I really wouldn't take this to the iron. It's just too little. Unless you're really good about just doing this. No more of this. Just, that's it. And I'm not. Okay, same thing. Line up the corner, line up the sides. And remember, this time we're stitching from the top, this top end. So there we are. with our little baby geese. And you can see that one. So see above the, where the blue comes to the peak there. So from that peak to the edge of the yellow should be 1/4 of an inch. And I'm only saying that because if you're going to trim it, say for some reason this was just a tad bigger, well, you might want to trim more from the bottom and not touch this because you want that 1/4 inch if possible. And don't worry about if all your points aren't perfect. It's just a quilt, table runner, whatever it is, not your prom dress. That does look pretty nice though. Okay, so, and again, I'm not going to stitch all these now because that would just be like you watching paint dry. So at least get these in and then go back and do more of them. This would be good practice for you. That's a lot of geese. And I happen to do these, well, they're all red, but you can see I didn't have the same background in every one of them. It doesn't matter. You can make them nice and pretty if you want to, but don't go off the edge over it. Just make it nice enough that it looks good in your little book and it's not distracting. Okay? So we got our square, our plain square. We've got our half square triangle, 1/4 square triangle, small squares, 2 flying geese, and we got them all to be the same size. Okay? So I'll just stop for a minute and see if anybody has any questions. And I'm going to remember to run these through before I put everything away. 2 times, that's it, just 2 times. Okay, so let's see, any questions? We're good? All right, so I hope some of you sewed along with me, and if you didn't, just make sure you get your resource book done. I am gonna use that fabric to make some kind of simple, and I mean simple because it's going to be bigger blocks. So I probably won't have anything like this. I'll do this same look with these, and it'll end up being an 8-inch one. And I know it's hard to tell because there's your little one, and this is so even though they're 4 separate blocks, we'll call them units, 4 separate units, it's still going to make the 8-inch, and the 8-inch is going to work fine with the 4-inch. I just haven't decided how I'm going to set it up. I really have to stop myself from not staying simple. And this one we'll do next time. And this one. These 2 we'll do next time. And this, again, this is just the 4. But these big ones, this is 8-inch, 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 8-inch. I don't think I'll do this one in this size. I'm not sure because, again, I want to stop myself from doing those little ones. Okay, so try to work on your book, and I'll do some more pages for you to download, and I'll put them on Facebook. I don't know, Wednesday, hopefully Wednesday. I always plan for the best or the fastest. And Saturday we're gonna do Saturday sew along 1 p.m. We're gonna do a pillowcase, but I'm gonna pull out my serger so you can do it on the serger or on the sewing machine. But I think it's time to get the serger out. I know a lot of people have a serger, and it's pretty simple. And again, you can do it with either one. And I'll post the fabrics. I have a class in the morning, so I'll post the fabric requirements tomorrow afternoon. I know the main part of the pillowcase is about 3/4 of a yard. So I know it's, you might not have the scraps for it, but you can always, watch and then do it again later. So thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks, Rhonda. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you get to make your resource book. Excuse me, so you can stitch along with me when I make some big square quilt top that should go fairly quick. So thanks again, and I'll see you next Thursday, and some of you I'll see Saturday at 1. Thank you. Bye.